Rich Tardy back with Foyer, President North America. It's great to be here with all of you over the next 2 days. Like we said, we have 32 amazing speakers, ton of content, ton of knowledge. They're ready to share all the tricks and trades with all of you to try to build up this design community that we care so deeply about. And our first guest here to kick things off is none other than Victoria Sanchez. She's here to discuss with us the art of client presentation, which we know is a hot topic these days because we're spending a lot of time listening to the design community that we're close to. Victoria is one of America's premier design professionals and has been creating one-of-a-kind interiors for hundreds of prominent clients over the past 3 decades. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Victoria.
Thanks, Rich. Hi there, everybody. Good morning. A little bit about myself. So I am Victoria Sanchez, and I'm coming to you today from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm originally from the DC area. I've been in Santa Fe now for 2 years. My career based in Washington, D.C. Started off with undergrad work and a master's in interior design. I always knew I wanted to be a designer. And in Washington, as Rich so graciously said, I have been working in this field 38 years now, 20 years with my own brand. And in Washington, I had a home office, and then it morphed, after a long time, it morphed into having a retail store. So the retail store was terrifically successful, great way to attract clients, take that note. And here in Santa Fe, I kind of revamped my business model, if you will, and I now am a little bit more of a showroom, less walk-in traffic, but still attracting folks with my showroom. So having the product here for folks to touch and see is a great way to enhance a client presentation. So talking about the art of client presentation. There is not one specific formula to, not one script that I can share with you where you could take notes. It's not a one size fits all. And so we're going to talk about different key elements that are super important for you to make sure that you have in your presentation so that you can seal the deal and have your client fall in love, not just with your presentation, but also fall in love with you and make sure that they've got the confidence to move forward in the process. So prior to getting started, before you walk in the door, put it that way, before you walk in the door with all your samples and your presentation tools, I'm going to assume that you have an agreement, a contract, that you've requested payment. Because presentations take hours, as you know. It's not something that you whip together 5 minutes before you walk out the door. So you're going to be investing hours in this presentation for your client. And I don't do that until I have a contract. You've already had that phone interview. You have an idea of what it is that they are looking for. You've met in person, you've been to the house to take a peek, but before the big full-on client presentation, please have a contract, please get some money for it, because you don't want to do hours and hours of work for free. Putting together your presentation, of course, you already have your design concept in mind. So I'm not going to talk about how to pull together a design concept, but I am going to talk briefly about knowing your client. In other words, if your client is, commercial and residential, right? Let's say you're presenting for a country club and it's the most prestigious country club in your town. Dress the part. I know it sounds kind of silly, but you certainly don't want to go in there with your Converse and jeans that are sort of frayed and maybe have some patches in it, you know, that may not be the best look when you're presenting to a board for a country club. You know, also walking into a client's home, you may not want to be dressed to the nines with your 4-inch heels if they're talking about their needs for a family room with 3 kids, 4 dogs, and they live out in the woods or, you know, whatever. So sounds silly, but it is an important little thing to note. I have found myself over the years subconsciously almost dressing to match my design presentation. And I know that sounds really insane, but when I'm doing, say it's press day for Show House, I have found myself dressing sort of to match my decor. And I'm not suggesting you do that. You know, don't purposely, you know, wear a blouse that looks like the draperies. But it kind of happens, I think, subconsciously when you're immersed, enthused, just you've totally bought into your own presentation. So know your client and know who you're presenting to before you even walk in the door. I can't stress enough the be prepared. So, you know, be prepared doesn't just mean pack your car and, you know, have your fabrics packed and, you know, your presentation board, your renderings finished. Being prepared is, you know, you're totally organized mentally as well as with your presentation tools. So I sometimes will even run through it in my mind the night before. As I'm putting together my tools, I'm sort of running through it to make sure that I have it organized. Even when I pack my fabrics and things in my bag, I have them layered so that if I'm going to be talking about the living room and the dining room, and my first one is living room, my living room fabrics are at the top of the bag, dining room at the bottom. You know, if you are organized during your presentation, you're really telling the client, you're exhibiting to them exactly how you're going to be running the job. So it's really important. You don't want to have to run back and forth to your car because the trim sample, you know, fell in the driveway as you were lugging all your stuff in, or, you know, you want to appear to be top of your game, not appear, you need to be top of your game. And, you know, they're looking to you to how everything is going to happen. So if you're organized, their first impression is going to be that their job is going to be run super well. And I think that's really important. I tend to, you know, everybody does it differently, right? I tend to present one way for my commercial clients and another way for my residential clients. So an example, I did I was so fortunate to be hired to work on a Art Deco apartment house in DC on 16th Street. It was blocks away from the White House. And it had so many of the Art Deco features in it that they wanted to retain, but it really needed a facelift. I think it was done in the 80s the last time. So I really wanted the job. And I hired a professional renderer who, she's in Washington, and I'd worked with her a number of times before. But in that situation, when I'm doing a commercial presentation, I've got decision makers. They tend to be, as you know, a little bit less emotional about the project in general. So I had a rendering done. It was large, and I had my presentation boards done. And so I walk in with that package, and even though I've got all the samples on the presentation board glued down, you know, and labeled and floor plan and all of that, I still take my actual samples. So I want my client to be able to not just touch the 2x2 square of carpet on the board, but throw it on the floor, take a look at it. And I frequently will also have backup samples as I'm presenting, what I think is the best, right? That's what we put in the rendering. That's what we put on the presentation board. But I will still have options. What if they hate what I've chosen? Then I want to make sure to have those options. So that's how I approach a commercial job. If I'm doing a residential job, my method of organizing the presentation differs. I don't tend to have presentation boards when I'm doing I don't want to say a lower budget, but if it's just one room, I don't go to the extreme of doing a presentation board or having renderings or doing that kind of thing. I'm much more hands-on with my client, and I want them to participate in that presentation. So I have always been the kind that has my shopping bag full of fabric samples. I have cut sheets that have my name on it. I don't share the manufacturer's info. And if we're in the living room, everything is sort of scattered. I bring things out of the bag. I want them to touch the fabric. I hand them the cut sheet. The more that they can participate in my presentation to them, the more invested they become. Just like when you're buying a car, once you sit in that driver's seat and you've got your hand on the steering wheel, you kind of want the car. So that's how I approach the presentation with my clients. I want them to touch that fabric. I want them to feel what that sofa is going to, that fabric's going to feel like when they're taking a nap on it, if that's what, that's what they're going to do. So I load up a lot of stuff in my shoppers, and kind of it's like a show and tell. When they're in my showroom, or when they were in the store in Alexandria, the presentation was also a very much show and tell, touch and feel. But, my product was there. So I could say, this is the kind of sofa that I think that you would like. Come on over and sit on it. Frequently, I would even, have them sit in the whole conversation area, and our entire presentation could take part there in the furniture that I wanted them to take home. So, yeah, definitely you want the clients to be involved. You don't want it to be a monologue kind of thing, so that's really important. And when you're presenting to your clients, of course, we all take everything personally. We are people pleasers. And so when you're sharing with your client and they say, your heart was set on the pink sofa, and they really don't want a pink sofa, but they never told you that before, and they say no, that's okay. Because when they're saying no, those no's also help you in your design process. They're just as important as the yeses. So there's no feelings to be hurt. When my clients will say to me sometimes, I'm so sorry, I don't love that fabric. I say, don't worry about it. I didn't design it. There's thousands more for us to select from. So, or the table, the lamp, whatever it may be. You can't take it personally. It's a learning process for them and you, so that you can better satisfy the client's needs. So the no's are as important as the yeses, which is why, as I mentioned, I take options. I've got that stash of fabrics as a backup, so that they can, if they hate option one, we've got more options, because you don't want to have only one option for them, and then you walk away from the presentation and they're not happy. So, having those backup options with you is super important. So one of the tricks, and this is the hard part, and we've all learned from experience on this one. When you're starting out in particular, we're all anxious. Well, even when you're not starting out, we're all anxious to get clients. We all want to be the one that's hired. So I think that I've done this so many times. I get so carried away. I'm so excited. The house is fabulous. It's brand new. It's empty, right? I want this project. But how do you share? How do you sell yourself that you're the person for them without giving them everything, right? You always want to make sure that they're asking for a little bit more so that you come back. And I think that is a really fine line that we walk. When I'm sharing all this information with my client, as I mentioned, I've already gotten money. So my client has already hired me. I've given them, my brief overview prior to putting in these hours of work, right? So I still don't want my clients to have all the information from my presentation. You don't want them to, you don't want to talk to them in their home and say, this is Farrow and Ball Skylight, 11111. This is Cravat, Aubergine Joy. You don't go there. This is Hickory Chair. It's called the, Sutton Sofa. You want to make sure that you are holding your cards. You're the professional. These are this is your intellectual information. You are selling them a vision. You're not selling them your shopping list. So you don't want to give them every single bit of information. Otherwise, they don't need you. Even though you may have charged, and I don't, everybody charges differently. I charge on a flat fee based on my scope. So they've already given me a little chunk of change, but they want to make sure you want to make sure that they still need you, right? So that's why my cut sheets are on my letterhead. It's got my logo, it's got my information, and I never leave that stuff with them. I will, if they have their husband to share it with, if they need the approval, the fabrics don't have tags on them, that kind of thing. And it's really hard because how many times have you gotten really excited, overshared, and then you're puzzled why you never hear from them again? It's because you gave them your shopping list. When you play poker, you hold your cards, and you need to take a very similar stance when you're working with your clients. My exception to that rule would be, for example, I have several clients that I've worked with on multiple homes. One of my dear clients, we've been working together 7 years maybe now, and third house, we're working on her third house. So she doesn't shop me. She's busy. We're great friends besides being, client designer relationship. So I can tell her, I'm going to say, look, this is a hickory chair sofa, and, I'm putting Brunswick fabric on it, and, whatever. But we already have that trust relationship. So you know, you'll know, you can feel out your clients a little bit, but you got to be careful. I hate to say it. So many folks shop us, they shop online, and then we're out of work, right? I mean, so common sense, but it's a tricky tightrope to walk on. Your presentation is, you know, meant to, it's meant to share your entire design vision with them. So that's what they want. They want to see the vision. They are not asking for those product numbers. I can't stress that enough, because I think that so many designers get nervous about when they're asked by the client, what, you know, what fabric is this? Whose lamp is that? Whose sofa is that? It's really hard because you're kind of in a corner, and you don't want to be dishonest. What I tend to do is I just say something like, it's a beautiful fabric. It's from England. Oh, the fabric, it's hand printed in London. Isn't it amazing? You know, so I sort of divert them. And that's a skill, because you don't want to lie. You don't want to appear that you're evading their questions. They are going to buy it, we hope, but you have to be really careful with that. So yeah, I can't say that enough. And I'm sure y'all are identifying with that, and you've been burned like I have. All right, let's move on. So one of the, when I walk into a presentation, like I said, I will frequently feel so excited about it that I dress the part or whatever. And I know it sounds corny, but that's just kind of how I roll. I even had a client, I've been a college professor, and I even had, sorry, not a client, a student, on our final presentation, somewhere along the semester, I told them that I guess that I dressed to match my presentations or my projects or whatever. When she did her final presentation, she showed up in the same, practically the same fabrics as her presentation board was. And the whole class laughed, we applauded her. It was so cute, but it really kind of made it seamless. It was a really nice, nice touch. So she felt great about her presentation, and it showed. One of the things that your client will definitely see through is if you believe in what you're pitching. If you believe that these fabrics are the perfect fabrics, these frames are really the right ones. You know, she's told you that her husband is 6'5" and needs to have a sofa that's comfortable enough to watch football and nap on. If you really think you found the right sofa, regardless of if it's $2,500 or $5,500, if you believe in that product, they're going to know. So it's really, really important that you're not BSing your way through this and, you know, trying to pitch something that is not the right design, not the right product, not going to have the wearability, not going to meet their needs. They're going to know. And then it comes back, of course, to bite you. So you really have to be excited about it, and you need to feel that every item is the perfect solution, even if you have multiple options. And I tend to have, well, I usually just give them two. They might get more, you know, maybe two color schemes. You know, we're not sure if we're going blue and yellow or blue and green, for example, because they already told me they love blue. But I don't show up with 6 sofa cut sheets and I love them all equally. And if I can't decide, how are they going to decide? I don't come with 15 trims and, you know, it's sort of 2 schemes. You get basically 2 options. I always start with the one that I'm most passionate about, because that's the easiest thing for me to sell, right? I don't I don't show them my budget scheme first. You know, if you have to, you start high and then you have to wiggle your way down. Going back to the Mercedes, they're not going to show you the little budget car. They're going to make sure you walk past whatever their most expensive car is, because that's the one that you're going to be touching and salivating over. That's what we want to do too when we're selling. And we are selling. We're not just being nice friends. We are selling and we're making a living. And that's what the goal is in this presentation. So it's really important that you, don't put yourself in their in their checkbook. And what I mean by that is when you're presenting and you've got these options, don't assume that the Scalamandre Le Tigre fabric, which we all would love to have yards and yards and yards of, don't assume that they're going to say no if you think a pair of green ones would be the bomb on their sofa or on their dining room chairs or whatever it is. Just because maybe I can't afford or you can't afford a Le Tigre sofa, that's going to cost you 10 grand. It doesn't mean that they may not splurge for that. So don't be afraid when you're putting together your presentation to go high. We don't know what's in their garage. Do they collect vintage Jaguars? Do they have a few $100,000 worth of sports cars in their garage? We don't know. So, and I'm not suggesting that you take advantage. But if you think that there's a product that's super perfect for their project, show it to them. You're trying to help them curate the best design possible. And if you think some of these products are splurge worthy, which is actually a great word to use, jot that one down, splurge worthy in your presentation, show it. And I tell that to my clients. I'm like, you know what? We're using the factory fabric that comes with this Vanguard sofa, so we can save some dollars there. But I really think to wamp up that sofa, I think it's worth the splurge to spend the $400 a yard on the fabric for these pillows and add that trim. And if you're really excited about it during your presentation, they're going to be really excited about it too. They're going to feel really special about having those, those splurge-worthy items. I mean, who wouldn't, right? When you're with these folks, you're going to be in a relationship with them for a long time. You have to be yourself. This is really funny. So a long, long time ago, I've done 5 houses for this client. It was, I guess, the 3rd project I was doing with him. I was on the project for 2 years, and I was really, really fortunate that he had absolute trust in me. So he rarely came to, it was major construction. I put 2 penthouses, luxury penthouses together. And he didn't live in DC. So I was dealing with all the construction and all the decisions. And at one point, it was, like I said, it was years ago. It was when the Tempur-Pedic beds had just come out, and we needed to go bed shopping. His wife wasn't really involved in the process, and so he asked me to go bed shopping with him. And I said, okay. We met at the Tempur-Pedic place. We're getting the pitch from the salesman. And of course he says, get in the bed, lay down, let me show you how it functions. And again, they were new, so we didn't know. So my client, who was in his late 70s at the time, he's on one side of the bed, I'm on the other side of the bed. We're remote controlling, And all of a sudden we turn and we look at each other and we realize we're in bed together. I mean, that is the kind of relationship that you want to have with your client. Total trust. Be yourself. We just took one look and laughed. And I did 2 more houses after that. So, you know, something that could have been really awkward and pretty weird has remained a funny little joke between us. And, you know, it was just being myself. And my client had that confidence in me and that trust in me that he could get in bed with me. So anyways, just a little funny thing, but it's so important to have that rapport with your client right from the get-go. If, you know, if you know that you've got that, well, you don't know, but if you feel that your client is trusting you in the process, you know, you want to make sure that you trust them as well, that they, you know, that they're going to not shop you, that they are going to allow you to do the job for them that you were hired to do, right? So if you're being, to use the term, your authentic self, then, you know, that trust is gonna come, and with time you will know. It's you know, people, right? Trusting people, but we're dealing with their money, so you're spending their money, not our money, and that trust and that confidence is super, super important. And you'll know. You'll know. Like, you know, it's an instinct. I think that the key to these presentations is just going to be organization. Be organized. Have your ducks in a row. Have answers to their questions as you're presenting. Be prepared for that. They may love your design, but if you don't have the answers to lead times, if you don't have answers to construction quality, general pricing, you know, how much is this sofa compared to the other one? Those are some of the things that you need to make sure that you don't just have the pretty, but you have the knowledge to back it up, because again, they'll know. And if you don't have the answers in your presentation on the products that you're super psyched about, that confidence from your client is going to start to, you know, it's going to go downhill. So I always know my vendors that I'm presenting to them. I always have done a little bit of research. You know, you may check the stock on something the day before your presentation to let them know, particularly if they're on a deadline, which is important, if they have that end date for an install. You may have checked and said, yep, carpet's in stock, the frames are in stock. Well, that's information they're going to want to know. Of course, you can't control it. What if they don't pay you for a month? Stock is gone. But at least during that presentation, you have done your homework. And again, that goes towards showing your organizational skills, your professionalism, preparedness, the key things that anyone's going to be looking for as they're spending their dollars with you. So I don't know. I'm going to take a look. I've got to put my glasses on here to read, but I am going to take a look here at some of these questions.
Yep. So I have one for you here, Victoria, if you want me to read it to you.
Yeah, it's easier if you read it and tell me.
Sure. We have one from Kim Burdette, and she said she has a problem narrowing her niche for her shop, and she would love to know from you how you decided what to carry in your shop. I hear she says, I hear you're saying it's important to know your client, but her demographics include bargain hunters.
Well, I think as designers, we're all sort of bargain hunters. So I can identify with that. When I opened up my store in Alexandria, and I'm even though I'm in Santa Fe, I'm going to use that as my primary example because I was in Washington, 36 years. That was my backyard. And before I opened up my shop, I did a lot of homework. I shopped my competition. I took a look at what they had. And I took a look at what they had and how it related to my style, right? Again, going back to if you love it, you can sell it. So that was really important to me. But I went to all the markets. So I don't know, Kim, if you go to markets. I go to High Point. I'm a style spotter this year. Sadly, it's virtual, but style spotter because High Point to me is so important to see the breadth of product out there. So going to markets to be able to do your mix of product. So if Hickory Chair is your all-time favorite upholstery line ever, you should have that. But then if you have other price points in your store, you're attracting more than one kind of client. So you don't want people to walk in and see that every sofa you have is $6,000, $10,000. Your lamps are only $1,000 plus. Go to the markets and get those relationships going with a number of different kinds of vendors, different types of price points, because you can certainly go to IMAX, which is a ginormous company with accessories and lamps and everything else, and find some different price points than maybe you would find with Visual Comfort. So I would recommend shopping the competition, going to the markets, and touch, see, feel, and get relationships going with the sales reps. They will also guide you as to what products would really be a good mix for your store. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much, Victoria. We have a few more minutes. I'm going to pose another one. We have one coming in from Carolina. It says, would love to know about your pricing for this initial presentation. And to be clear, do you get a payment before you arrive at their house?
Yes, I do. So, clients, they either, again, using showroom, folks walk in. My showroom is my portfolio. As a matter of fact, what you're seeing behind me is a photo of my showroom. So that's what I look like here in Santa Fe. But they walk in and they've either been on your website or whatever. So there's already a connection. They've already expressed an interest. Okay, I think I want to hire you. I will go to someone's house. I typically charge to go to their home unless it's an empty house and I happen to notice it was worth millions. I'll give them a free visit. But I charge to go to someone's house. It's a 2-hour minimum. It's a $500 flat fee. And that's where I give them my brief vision of how we're going to move forward on the project. I tell them how I charge. And the way that I charge is I will do a scope of their project. So if we are doing the living room, I will say to them, okay, we need 2 lamps, 2 end tables. You want an 84-inch sofa. I'm thinking a rectangular coffee table, but really not sure what that's going to be. Again, I'm not giving them all the information so that they hire me. I'm feeling like, blue would be a gorgeous color, and maybe we add earth tones to go with your existing rug, blah, blah, blah. They nod their head. I go back to my office. I put together a contract. I put together the scope, my list of to-dos, send it to them, and I always say, upon receipt of payment, I am so excited to get started on your project. So I've already been paid to specify 2 lamps, 2 end tables, 94-inch sofa, whatever I put in that scope, I get my money, put together my presentation, then I go to their house. Do not do anything for free. Your divorce lawyer will not do your divorce for free. Get the money, then decorate.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, we're going to field one more. We have 5 minutes, and Victoria,
Okay.
just so everyone knows, is going to be part of our next talk. So I'm going to give her one more, and I'll give her an opportunity to answer for a few minutes, and then I'll give her some time to get on to her next one. So we have a question that says, from Kartik, what should I do when my client is really into some material or fabric or color that would really mess the whole theme or look up?
Dang, fire them. I know, that's a really hard one. So we do have an ego. You know, we all think we're pretty fabulous, which we are, but we don't live there. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but we don't live there. So at the end of the day, we want clients to be happy, and it's their environment. It's not ours. If you hate puce, don't put it in your own house. If they love puce and you think it's just not the right thing, I believe it's a professional obligation to steer them into what you believe is correct. If you can't do that, then make it a pillow, make it a lamp base, make it a really groovy bowl or a box, make it a smaller piece of your design, but you need to honor what they love. I was hired to do an Art Deco penthouse in Georgetown, and I am not an Art Deco girl, but my fees were between $30,000 to $35,000 a month to do an Art Deco penthouse, and I delivered. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Push your feelings aside, deliver, they're gonna live there.
Awesome. I thank you so much. That was a great way to lead off the 2-day talk. So Victoria, thank you again. The comments have been amazing. We had over 124 people logged in, and just an amazing chat. So keep the chat, keep the Q&A coming through each of these sessions. It helps us. It helps our speakers. We're trying to answer as many as we can. We can't get to all of them, but if you queue them up faster, chances are we're going to get to them sooner as well. So we've got a minute and a half. We're going to say goodbye to Victoria for a second, and anything you want to say before we depart.
Yeah, I'm also going to say this real quick, Rich. I mentioned that I have been a teacher, college professor. I am more than happy. My business, Victoria at Home, my emails on my website. I am more than happy to answer emails, take phone calls. I really, really believe in mentoring and helping people, you know, be super successful in this business. So don't be shy. Feel free to reach out. I would love to help in any way if someone thought I had something to offer.
Excellent. I so appreciate all your inspirations. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right, perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
have a great day. All right,
all right,
bye.
bye.